What is going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke. Welcome on in to our weekly DFS live stream. All of us golf hardos getting ready to go ahead and make some money, or probably lose money in GPPs, but at the very least, we're going to give ourselves a shot to go out there and cash out. So hopefully everyone's having a great Wednesday, a great start to their golf weekend, as I like to call it here. And tomorrow, we've got ourselves our first full field event. A full 144 players, a cut line to worry about after Friday. So I'm looking forward to it. And it has a completely different vibe to it. You know, getting to the weekend is the first half of the equation. And that's when the real GPP feels like it's starting to get real, right? It feels like that's when the actual contest starts. So looking forward to it. I can see a few of you down there, Cohiba, Nick, and Robert. What's going on, everyone? Hopefully you're doing well. Nick says, how are we doing tonight, Mr. Luke? Good question, actually. I'm sick, actually. So I woke up today, had a really scratchy throat, was coughing, hacking, all that sort of stuff. So I had just like 5 cough drops before I came on here. I've been downing Dayquil all day, that sort of thing. So if I start hacking, if I had to mute the mic, that's what's going on. But we're toughing it out. It's a Wednesday. I feel like I have a little bit more energy now that I'm starting to talk about golf, get into this weekend. So hopefully we can survive by the end. Backwards hat. Yeah, I'm vibing tonight. It's probably because I'm sick. I'm feeling a little bit different, perhaps a little bit loopy because all the Dayquil we had to take. But hey, we're surviving. We're moving on. So before we hop into players, before we hop into all the questions out there, let's start talking about the golf course. So as we typically do here, let's take a look at Waialae Country Club, the venue for this week, where last year it played extremely straightforward. Easy 23 under par winner. There was only really one day where the weather got slightly dicey, and that was right around 12 to 15 mile an hour winds. There was never that 15 to 25 miles an hour of sustained winds, which can really throw scores sideways, and you saw players take advantage. That led to a higher driving accuracy than what we're used to seeing at this track. It's typically closer to like 62, 61%, and the green and regulation percentage was significantly higher than what you're used to seeing. It's right around 70, sometimes right around like 68, 69% at this event. If you look at the numbers from 2021 and 2020, it was 75.2% last year. So with those benign conditions, the players were able to take advantage. And outside of the guys that won, you could see more than a handful of guys were able to take it to 17 under par plus. This year, unfortunately, I should say, outside of the first day, it looks very similar to what they're going to have last year. But tomorrow, it's looking a little bit more dicey. So we're going to take a look at 4 different weather sources here because there's a little bit of a tricky situation boiling. So early today, I should say right around midday today over there in Hawaii, you were dealing with a huge storm that came through. Got around 20 to 18 miles an hour of sustained winds. The wind gusts right around that same sort of level. And then that's going to last all the way into Thursday, so into the first round. And all of the wind sources we're about to look at, and there's going to be 4 of them, like I said, because there's some wacky shit going on here. All of them have the winds going into Thursday. It's just how far into Thursday they last. You can see here for Wind Finder, they have them finishing up right around 8 to 11 a.m. So right around like noon there on a Thursday. Unfortunately, we don't have the super forecast over here in Hawaii. It goes from right around 14 miles an hour of sustained winds and drops in half to right around 7 to 8 miles an hour. Take a look at Friday. It looks beautiful the entire day. Saturday, the same thing. Now on Sunday, it looks dicey once again. So on Saturday and Sunday, conditions are looking like they're going to play perhaps significantly more difficult than what we're used to seeing. But Friday and Saturday look absolutely beautiful. So the real issue we have to worry about right now, right? This is for the main slate. We're trying to think about, the impact in terms of DFS is going to be this early weather on Thursday. Now I want to throw you the curveball. Okay, so this is what Wind Finder has to say. Just one source. Heading over to Windy. So this is another prominent source. They actually have an app you can bring this up on as well. The golf course is in this area right here. I believe actually it might even be this over here. I don't know. It's on Diamond Head Beach. It's in this area somewhere. It might be this really big area over here. Either way, though, if you take a look at the bottom here where they have the wind gauge, on Thursday, they have it extremely windy in the morning, like we were talking about. But you can see in the afternoon between 2 to 5 p.m., it only drops to right around 19 to 17 miles an hour of those wind gusts. The sustained winds are consistent throughout the day. So rather than having a huge drop-off right around midday here on Thursday, the other wind source we're looking at here has it relatively consistent. So, okay, that's 1 point for both, all right? Let's go over to Willy Weather now. Now, Willy Weather, another wind source that, specializes on wind, kind of like those first two sites. And that's why I choose these sites, not weather.com. I don't choose like AccuWeather to look at the wind. I choose the weather sites that specialize on the wind, right? That would make sense. So we have Willy Weather up here that's really looking at the winds early in the day. So right around, let's get to 5 a.m. They have it at 16 miles an hour of sustained winds. At 8 a.m., they have it at 13.9. So it goes down a little bit, right? So I think they're being a little bit more conservative about it than some of the other sites. And they have it staying consistent like that throughout the day. You can see 2 p.m., it goes down to 12.8. At 5 p.m., it's at 12.8. So there's only a 1 mile an hour difference between pretty much the entire day. And then at 8 p.m., it goes down significantly. Let me see if I can find the 8 p.m. wind bar. Well, you can see, yeah, down here, 8 p.m., 10 miles an hour of wind. So you can see they classify it as a gentle breeze. That happens a lot later than what they're saying over here on Windfinder. Then over here on Windy, they don't have it dropping off until Friday morning. So you have a couple sites that are all saying different things. And then what's even better is the Windy app over here agrees with Windfinder. So yet again, another wind specializing app here, where in the morning they have it dicey, 17 to 18 miles an hour wind. And then in the afternoon, right around midday, it goes from 16 down to 9 miles an hour. So it's a little bit of a tough situation. It's hard to really believe anything. But here's what I'll leave you with. Here's my thoughts on the weather, how I'm playing it, right? At worst, we know it's going to be windy all day. We know the conditions are going to suck on a Thursday. And I know that if I want somebody going off in the morning, I want them to play on an easy day. Because when you go out there and you have receptive greens, when you can throw darts, I want my guys to make birdies, right? I don't want them to be playing in windy conditions where they're just looking to save par. So let alone if it stops or it doesn't, right? I think it favors the guys going in the PM/AM because they can go out there on Friday morning when the weather looks beautiful. No matter what weather source you look at, it looks beautiful on Friday morning. Even that one site that doesn't have it clearing up until Friday morning, it's right around 7 to 8 miles an hour of sustained winds. So they all agree on that at the very least. But then you have this added benefit, right? Where if it does end up cooling down or calming down here in the afternoon, like it says over here in Windfinder, like it also says over here on the Windy app, well, then you've hit the jackpot. Well, then you're not just dealing with waking up early on Friday and throwing darts, then you're also going to have an advantageous conditions for the first day in the quote unquote bad wave, right? Typically the PM is when players play a little bit more poorly than they did in the morning. That has to do with how firm the greens are, how scuffed up the greens are, with all the traffic on them throughout a day, particularly with 144 players, they tend to get a lot of imperfections on them by the time the PM wave is going around. That all typically makes the AM wave plays easier. I mean, if that's not the case, or if the winds end up dropping half, that's going to flip the entire script. That's going to lead to a shot and a half, 2-shot difference. I think as of right now, even if it doesn't drop off, you're looking at right around maybe a half stroke, 3/4 of a stroke difference, because, having ideal conditions and receptive greens is the absolute jackpot. I mean, you're going to go out there, the average is probably going to be 2.5, 3 strokes under par on that wave in the morning. And tomorrow morning in these windy conditions, I would be surprised if they shot 1.5 under par. I think they're probably going to shoot even worse than that, something closer to like 1 under par. That's a huge difference, right? And obviously, like I said, even if it doesn't drop off, the PM guys are going to suck tomorrow, but it's about what they make up there on Friday afternoon. So that's it for the weather. All of that to say that I am favoring the guys in the PM wave, but I'm not exclusively playing AM players. So that's just, PM players. That's worth noting. I'll give you guys one off here. I got my projections up here now. I am playing Jordan Spieth. So Jordan Spieth, I'm obviously a huge hardcore fan there, but he's also got the ability to flight the golf ball. So if I'm going to take guys that are playing in that morning wave, the conditions that aren't all that great, one, I'm going to make sure that they can play in the wind, but two, and probably even more importantly, they have to not be chalky. If they're going to be somebody that's getting a bunch of ownership, well, then that's going to be a relatively straightforward fade for me. So we'll talk through some of the examples, kind of like a Jordan Spieth, where I still like them in the quote unquote disadvantageous wave. But yeah, let's catch up on chat. Let's see what's going on down there, boys. So Kihiwa says, thanks for all you do. Last year, Keith Mitchell had one bogey in 4 rounds, yet missed like 20 birdie putts from right around 10 feet. What do you think he does to us this week? So I like playing him. I like the upside because if you look at his last 5 years here, he's made the cut in all but one trip, which is great for Keith Mitchell. He's typically a little bit more inconsistent, a little bit more volatile. And the numbers on the greens have also been a little bit better than what we're used to seeing. And he likes Bermuda grass. So we know he's a bomber. He doesn't really fit the narrative I'm going for this week with accurate drivers. But if you look at his numbers from this year, so just for the fall swing, he's number 5 in the field when number 7 in the field when it comes to driving accuracy, which I don't think any of us really would have thought. So maybe he's figured something out off the tee. Maybe he's utilized some sort of equipment change. Maybe it's a shorter driver. We will never know. But either way, I think it sets up for him well. And he's played well here in the past. So hopefully he can make a few of those 10-footers. I mean, that'd be great, right? A lot of that's just up to the luck, up to the good old chance of the greens there. And to the 1 bogey in 4 rounds, I didn't know that about him. Makes me like him actually a little bit more here. I wouldn't count on that happening again just because he is such a volatile player, does miss so many greens. But yeah, solid play all around. We already got to that, Nick. Thank you. Nice to see you down there. Robert says the moves like Jaeger. I love it. I love him this week. He's one of my top plays for sure. We'll talk about it. The backwards hat has to be feeling it, drinking some scissor. And I'm not actually. I am completely sober because of the throat ache, because of the fact that I'm sick. This is water in this cup, believe it or not. I know it's not a see-through cup. I don't know if you believe me here, but yeah, believe it or not, just sipping on water tonight. I know the backwards hat would probably tell a different story, but I'm telling the truth here. Let's see what we got going on. We got Ben down here. He says, if we're playing a 3 max or 20 max, do you recommend feeding chalk like Im and Kim? If you are playing them, should you play them on separate lineups? So personally, if you're playing in a 3 max or a 20 max, it's not changing my strategy all that much. It depends on your intentions. If you're going to take a chalky piece up top, you better be differentiating elsewhere. You should have at least 1 to 2 guys that are going to be sub 5%, or else, depending on the size of that contest, again, a lot of it depends on that, the sort of contest that you're entering, you might be duplicating yourself with quite a handful of people, especially if you're playing both of them together. Now, what I'm doing is I'm taking one or the other. I love Sungjae Im this week. That's the horse that I'm going behind. He's a lot less chalky than a Tom Kim at this point. That's the strategy that I would probably recommend, is taking one or the other, just kind of picking your horse and going with it. But I don't think you have to fade them. I don't think you have to play them either. It all depends on your play style. There's a more than enough opportunity, I just want to get this out there, that both of them fail, right? Where Sungjae Im and Tom Kim finish outside the top 5, finish outside the top 10 even in this golf tournament, and you're looking at that 9K range just being the absolute honeypot, right? Maybe 2-3 of them finishing in the top 10, and that's what you need for that optimal lineup. That doesn't surprise me. And I'm going to have a few lineups this week that certainly start that way. So all of that to say that it's up to you there. There's not really one cookie cutter answer, because we're going to start talking through some of these top end plays here in a second. I love Tom Kim this week. I just can't play him and Sungjae. And I've got a feeling about Sungjae this week. The stats love Sungjae. He loves Bermuda grass. He hit the ball well last week. There's just a few more things pushing me towards Sungjae right now than Tom Kim, but I wouldn't be surprised if he absolutely went off. Nick Marr says, short positional course, fire up 100% Stewart. Is he even in the field this week? I don't think he is, because if I saw him, I think I would have noted. Let's see. No, he's not on the field. Thank goodness. We don't have to deal with somebody taking 2 minutes to hit every single golf shot. So that's fantastic. Your version of him this week is Ryan Armour. Okay, so Ryan Armour, Brian Stewart, pretty much the same player. They kind of even look similar. So yeah, your Brian Stewart this week is Ryan Armour. Mal says, how is Taylor Montgomery's skill set suiting for this course? Surely one to watch. Great up-and-coming prospect. Sleeper pick here, or I should say spoiler alert here. I'm playing him this week. But from the course fit perspective, there's a lot to be desired. So if you're trying to play him based on him being a good course fit, then I would question that, because his driving accuracy is suspect at this point. He's got the putting that we're looking for. The iron play has also been a little bit inconsistent. So I'm not going to call him a good course fit, but I'm still playing him this week. I think he has the type of ceiling to go out there and get it done. It's just that there's probably better courses for him. Ideally, one that's a little bit more wide open off the tee. Ideally, one that's perhaps a little bit longer, because he is relatively long. He does have some distance for his size, but he could win anywhere. I honestly think, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, is he someone to watch and back this year? He is, absolutely. Yeah, he surely is one. Mark says, you have Langworth at 16-1 for a top 10. I loved it. He was plagued by injuries last year, but ended up showing form towards the end. And he won the Korn Ferry Tour. Yeah, thoughts? He's in my player pool. We're actually going to talk about him a little bit later. So obviously on here, guys, just little plug here. Obviously, everything that's, exited out is on the Discord. It's on the Patreon page. That's what you get for joining the Patreon. Over here, I did decide to include some of the rankings and whatnot. So we can talk about some of the players, do a little bit of a deep dive on them. I wanted to make sure to include that for everyone in the field. But if you're looking for my projected points and whether somebody's actually in my pool, that's going to be on there. But I did include a few guys on here that I wanted to talk about. And David Lingworth is one of those players. So actually, yeah, he is, right? $6,700. We'll just talk about him right now. So David Lingworth, perfect course fit. His irons from the buckets we're looking at from 125 to 150, 150 to 175, and his Bermuda numbers, right? Obviously a lot better than most other surfaces for Lingworth. He checks all of like the specific boxes you're looking for when you're looking for course fit. Like if we opened up the key stats tab over here, which I'll do right now, all of the things I'm weighing a little bit more than most, like these proximity buckets, the slow greens, he checks that box. He's good on Bermuda. He hits fairways. We know that about David Lingworth. Let's see. Actually, I got to scroll over here a little bit to bring these other ones up. Birdie or better percentage. He's an aggressive player. Even the shots gained Bermuda numbers out of rough. So his approach numbers out of the rough, he checks that box. So yeah, I'm on him this week. I think the top 10 markets, a very intriguing way to target it as well, because I do think he has the upside to get there. And with 16 to 1 odds, it's kind of hard to gauge that sort of thing. That's the thing. I don't bet top 10s all that often, so I don't have quite as good a feel for that as I do for like the outright market. That seems, though, just from the top level perspective, like it would be a really good bet. But I don't have the metrics to back that up. Sorry. Let's see what we got, Randy. Good morning from Thailand. What's going on? Welcome on in. You like Hoagie's stats around the green, but you're concerned about his traveling. So yeah, going to the national championship game. That's a valid concern. I'm a little bit more worried about the tee time. So he's one of the few players going out early. So that's a slight little issue for him. But like I said, I'm not going to completely remove somebody from my pool just because of that. What I worry about with Tom Hoagie is regression. He's playing over his head. Everyone knows this. When he went out there, he played really well at Pebble. He was playing above his head. And then after he had that win, he completely disappeared. Now, is this the week that he goes out there and wins and then completely disappears? Maybe. But then there's also the very real possibility that he's already hit that climax. He's already gone to that mountain. He's already gone to the summit, and now he's on his downfall. He's one of those extremely streaky players that it's hard to get a read on. So I'm personally fading him. The ownership's a little bit higher than I'd like. And the real deciding factor that kept him out of the pool was the weather, was the fact that he's playing in the morning wave tomorrow. He's going to be subject to winds that are going to be pretty nasty, especially early towards 6 a.m. So that's the only concern I have. The traveling perspective, not so much. I'm not really holding that against him, but I do think there are other reasons to perhaps be a little bit wary of him. Neil says, senior like in the unders on Bez and Sink. Does the past course history worry you at all? Yeah. So Neil, past history, those recent charts and everything. In NBA, they make a little bit more sense. Other sports like NHL, they make a little bit more sense because they're from like a week ago, right? This was from an entire year ago. So these players are completely different guys at this point. Stuart Sink's a very old player. He's regressed a lot over the last 6 months. And then you also have to consider the weather. Last year, it was beautiful all 4 days. For tomorrow, it looks like it's going to be really nasty tomorrow morning. So the course history, to answer your question, yeah, I don't look at it very much. What I do look at are the field averages. And last year, the field average for birdies was 3.6 birdies. And Stuart Sink is a below average player in this field. I think everyone out there would agree with that. And Christian Bezainhout, when it comes to birdie or better percentage, was number 147 on tour last year. So well below average, right? So when you look at those two factors, right? You're talking about a below average player and then somebody that's well below average when it comes to birdie or better percentage. You're projecting them for 3.5, 3.4 birdies last year, right? So sure, they looked like they played well on paper, but do we think they were playing above their head? I mean, likely, right? When you look at the averages for the field, and then when you consider the weather, I mean, it's really hard sell to take the over. It is. There's only 2 par 5s on property. There's no drivable par 4s. So let's give you 2 birdies on the par 5s. You got to make 3 birdies on a regular hole out there. And in shitty weather, I'm not counting on that. I'm very confident on the unders. But yeah, I've seen those, Neil, and there's a reason why. And by the way, usually those numbers aren't even on Prize Picks. There's a reason why they're giving you the last 5 stats. That's all I want to say is They know what they're doing on there, especially like for NBA, those sort of things. They, especially when they're trying to choose players to give props on with golf, they know what they're doing. There's guys that they took off the board, like a Russell Knox, for example, who they put up, who's a similar kind of player, projects in that same sort of level, but he was like 0 for 5 on his last 5. Why do you think they took him off the board and not these other players that are projected in that same vein? It's because they know that the last 5 chart doesn't have all greens on it, and everyone was slamming the unders on it like they're supposed to. They know if they keep up guys like a Stuart Sink and Seabez that played well last year, that people are still going to take overs on them when they know the weather's shitty. So I don't know. I think they're setting a trap for you. That's all I got to say. David says, any thought on Palmer and Spawn? I like Palmer. JJ Spawn, let me check on his tee time. That's tee time dependent. He's a little bit expensive, so I don't like that. But let's see. JJ Spawn is an early tee time. Yeah, I'm out on him. Not a big fan because of the tee time and the price tag and the ownership. A lot of things trending up on JJ Spawn. Miker says, what do you think about Sanjay at over 4.5 birdies? I don't love a lot of overs tomorrow. The weather isn't really conducive to overs. If I was going to take an over on anybody, it would be Sanjay M, though. At 4.5 birdies, he comes to mind. Let me just look at the board. I'll give you an answer here. I think it might just be Sanjay. I didn't play it myself. I'm going to give you that information. I usually don't give out plays that I don't play myself. But I'll give it to you with that caveat, right? So you have, let's see, going off late tomorrow. Yeah, that's the only one I really like. The rest of the board, to be quite frank with you, is priced appropriately based on talent level, all things considered, all that sort of fun stuff. Yeah, Sanjay's all right. Nick says, how do you feel feeling starting a lineup of all the Kims? So who do you got? Sibu Kim, got Tom Kim, obviously. Who else? I don't know. I should know this, but is it just those two? No, we got SH Kim. I like SH Kim too. I don't know. Maybe you're on some. Is it just those 3? It probably is. It's probably just those 3. I don't know. You can do it. I'm not doing it. I don't want to play Tom Kim. He's just a little bit too highly owned for me, but shit, that meme lineup might do something for you. Stewart is in the field. He's 6,300. Then why is it not coming up on my sheet? You sure about that? Am I tripping? Don't make me go down there and see him. Oh my goodness. Yeah, he is in the field. Why didn't he come up? I did Control F earlier and he didn't come up. So I didn't think he was in the field. Yeah, he's on my spreadsheet here. Yeah, I'm not playing him. Screw it. You can play him. He's a good course fit. You're right. Look at this. So he's shit in every metric, right? He's losing across the board at everything, which you'd expect from Brian Stewart. He's number 54 in Waialae fit. All of that's the driving accuracy. His driving accuracy component completely carries that. Yeah, so yeah, you're onto something, Nick. You know he's a good course fit. I'm not going to play him, though. He's one of those guys. Marco says, what's up, Luke? Let's get ready to make some money this week. Can't agree anymore. Waiting live from Mexico. Are you worried about the weather Thursday morning for some golfers? Yes. So if you go back, I do touch on the weather about 10 minutes ago and get a full picture there. But yes, I am worried about the weather. Jimmy says, thoughts on Kazire as a dark horse? Love it. Solid Bermuda numbers. The issue is the driving accuracy, but when you get down to the bottom of the 7K range, top of the 6K range, every player is going to have at least 1, 2, probably 3 or 4 problems to go along with them. So, you got to eat a few of those players in that range, and Kazire's driving accuracy, while it's far from ideal, I do think that he's a decent play because of the Bermuda numbers. And here, one second, guys. Throat's killing me. If you're just joining in, I am really sick right now, trying to combat this cough of some sort that I have. It's probably COVID, but we've had COVID before. We'll be all right. Let's go. Pan Kazire, $7,300. So he's gaining of late, gaining on approach, gaining around the green, losing on off the tee and with the putter. The putter's the surprising part because when you look at Kazire's numbers down here, where is he? He's like $6,900. There he is. He gains close to half a stroke per round on Bermuda grass. So when you take a look at that differential, which is the difference between his baseline on Bermuda and then compared to his last 36 rounds, it's over a stroke difference. And when you get to this sort of category, you're getting to the point where it has to return, it has to bounce back. The guy that we talked about going into the week with that sort of scenario is Russell Henley. It's why that even though that he's in the AM wave, I'm willing to play a Russell Henley because he has that bounce back metric going for him. So, to answer your question there, I love Kazire. He has that same sort of effect going to him as of Russell Henley. Caitlin May says, hey, Luke, will you still be showing your picks on Twitter for us? They're on my YouTube. So if you go to the YouTube, I actually posted a whole video on that. It'll be on there. I try not to post the slip there because I want to get people some traffic to my YouTube page. So yeah, there's a video on it. The Prize Picks video is the last one I uploaded. So make sure to check that out. Jack says, might be a little bit chalky, but got to go to Tom Kim on a course that's made for his game. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked at all if he was 3 or 4 shots clear. That's for sure. The one thing that's keeping me off of him, Jack, is the rough length. And I want to start talking about this board. So we'll just start talking about it. This will be the first guy we talk about here, Jack. We'll get back down into the chat here in just a little bit. And by the way, Anthony, you caught my eye down there. Thank you. 44 people watching and only 13 likes. Come on, you lazy fuckers. You said it. Your words, not mine. And what's going on, man? Hopefully you're doing well. I'm battling a little bit of a sickness here, but hey, we got some energy because we got some golf going. So I'm excited. Hopefully we're going to have a good week here. So let's start talking about Tom Kim. So I went back and forth on this guy like 50 times. The thumbnail for my Core Picks video was already made with Tom Kim as the poster boy. So just to tell you how close I was to putting him as like my number one play this week, I bet him outright. So I already have an outright bet on Tom Kim. So like you said, Jack, if he wins by 3 or 4 strokes, not going to be surprised. I'm also going to be pretty happy about it. But the more and more I dug in on Tom Kim, the more and more I thought about it. And, you know, when I do my course breakdowns, the whole reason that I look at the GCSA site is to try and find some of the differences. We know the rough this year is going to be a lot more penal. And I haven't heard anybody ask a question about it yet. So I feel like not a lot of people are considering this. When you have longer rough, and you have narrow strips of fairways like you have here, even the best drivers are going to miss 3, 4, sometimes 5 fairways in a round. So when Tom Kim is missing the fairways and he's dealing with that 3-inch Bermuda grass, which he's never played in. So to this point in his career, he's never played on that sort of golf course. Do we know how he's going to respond to that is the question. And I know I don't have the answer for you. He might be great out of the rough. He might be one of those natural players that can dig it out of there, right? For, you know, Matt Kuchar comes to mind. He's able to dig the ball out of rough and he looks like a big, strong guy doing so. He's like a frail old man at this point, but he just has that ability, whatever that God-given talent is. Who knows if he has that, right? So I can think of that sort of aspect to keep ourselves off of Tom Kim. The putter hasn't been there of late. So I know everyone looks at the putter and goes, oh, well, he's not putting of late. Imagine if he does. Well, then there's also the fact that he's just not putting well, right? So like we're hoping that he turns it around, but now he's mega chalk, but we're leaving that on the contingency of just hoping that he turns his putting around, right? So think about it this way. He's a 30% owned player. If you're going to play him, you got to put him in like 2/3 of your lineups, right? So do you think 65% of the time that Tom Kim turns around the putter this week? Because if he doesn't, there's no guarantee that he's going to finish top 5 or top 10, right? Like we've seen him over the last few finishes. Let's bring up the recent starts. You know, it's been great, right? 5th, 10th, 11th. Is a 10th and an 11th enough to pay it off? I don't know, right? Sure, the 5th probably does. The win probably does. The second place, this actually I think was the President's Cup. So ignore the second place finish there. So he's had 2 out of his last 5 that, you know, would have been optimal there. Do we think he's that much of a shoe-in here to finish in the top 5? Or more importantly, right, like I think putting in terms of the putter, do we think that more than 70% of the time that he's just going to flip the putter, go from a loser over his last 20 or so rounds to a gainer and a significant gainer here? I'm not quite as sold. I think he's going to be one of the best players on tour. I think I'm on record as saying that I think he might be world number 1 by the end of this year. That's something that I've gone on record and saying. I think he's literally that good. But when you're playing DFS, it's a volatile sport and you have to consider game theory. It's just too tempting of a fade. I love the kid. That's why I bet him outright. I bet him outright and I'm fading him in DFS. I feel like that's a very appropriate way to handle this situation because I understand the upside, but I also see some of the falls. And like I said, when I'm going for $25,000 to first place in the GPP that I'm playing 150 max contest. Now I'm willing to take a little bit more risk than I am in the outright market, right? Outright market, it's a fucking $200 bet. If he wins or loses, so be it, right? Whereas in the GPP format, you have to be thinking a little bit differently. So that's my thoughts on it. I know it's probably going to piss a lot of people out there, the Tom Kim Legion, and I'm a part of that. Like I said, I literally think he might be world number 1 here in the next year. Like it could happen in a year. I got to stop saying this because people are going to get fucking pissed at me when it doesn't happen. But I literally think he might be by the end of the year. Let's see what's going on. Some green screen secure. What's ailing you? Yeah, I've been taking a bunch of those fucking cough drops and shit, but I can tell it's wearing off now. So we're 30 minutes in. The last 30 minutes might be a little bit rough. And Travis says, have you any thought on Nick Taylor? He's in the good wave. He's a good ball striker. I think he's a great play, Travis. So he's not in my personal pool, but I 100% understand it. What's going on, Tar Heels? What is your course again? Your core again. Not sure what you're saying. Your core. Okay. So my core picks up top. I'll go through them. So I have them all marked here. So it's Sanjay, it's Russell Henley, Adam Scott, and Keith Mitchell. But if you're talking about just like my 4 favorite plays on the slate, maybe like 2 up top, 2 in that bottom tier range. I love Sanjay up top. He's my favorite spend up. I absolutely love Keith Mitchell. And we'll give a little extra shout out to Adam Scott as well. But in terms of the value picks, Kurt Kitayama is probably my favorite play on the slate, all things considered, in terms of price. Grayson Sig's up there, but Jaegerbaum. I keep coming back to that low ownership, that high upside play. All he has to do is spike with the irons. And we've seen him do it before. So it's not like we're asking for something to happen that's never happened for Steven Jaeger. Everything else has been there for the German. I love Rune from too. It's Jaeger bombs, right? We get to spam Jaeger bombs on Twitter when he goes out there and is making 40-foot putts on Sunday. I love Jaeger. I love myself some Kitayama. He's my favorite play on the slate. And up top, Sungjae Im's just going to be my guy this week. I also bet him outright like a Tom Kim, and he's going to be like 50% owned plus in my GPP pool. I'm gonna, and again, you guys are playing against me. You're probably in that 150 max too. One of my spots. Get over it, right? Good luck trying to beat me in the 7 and 6K range. Even if you have my player pool, good luck beating me. And I'm only saying that because I'm getting excited about the competitive aspect this week. But people always like ask me that question of like, oh, well, you give away your player pool, how are they going to beat you? Good luck trying to get the same combinations as me. Like even like if you have 34 players, choose 6. It's like a trillion or so different combinations. Like I said, good luck, especially when I leave salary on the table. Chandler says thoughts on McNeely. I don't love the tee time for McNeely. He's dealing with the bad wave, and I'll just confirm that. I'm pretty sure that's why I didn't have him in my pool. Because, yeah, he is. He's at 7:30 a.m. tee time. That's the main concern. The driving accuracy is a concern, but I do think that he's going to lay up a little bit more than most players. He's long enough off the tee to do so. I don't hate it. He's a high upside, low-owned play. And I think if he was in the good wave, I think if he was coming in with just a little bit better form, he might even be chalk at this sort of event. People love playing a Maverick McNeely. And this week, you're getting them at relatively low ownership. So if you're ever going to jump on board, even though it's a little bit risky, it might be the week to do so. I'm not personally going to have the stones to get there. There's a few other guys that like a little bit more, but I think it has upside, and there's definitely a time and place for it, especially if you're playing Tom Kim up top. I think he's a really good way to differentiate your second man in. Michael says, chances of Kurt Kitayama, I love him. I bet him outright. He's one of the few guys outside of the guys at the top of the board that I bet outright. I like him, Michael. Thoughts on Chris Kirk? So I don't know if I kept him in the pool or not. I'm going to double check that here on another tab. He was in the pool this afternoon. I'm not sure if he made the final pool or not. What I actually ended up entering on DraftKings. Let me see. 1 second here. I have it up on my phone. Chris Kirk. Lord, now it's not zooming in. All right, I think he's in the pool still. Yeah. Even if he's not, I like the play. Just to answer your question there, Nick. He's accurate off the tee. I think he's playing in the bad wave. Don't quote me on that. I'll just look it up. We have time here. We're only a half an hour in, so yeah, we got time. So Chris Kirk, yeah, he's going off early. He's got a 7:30 a.m. tee time. That's the only reason you might want to fade him, but he's not chalky, right? So that was kind of the contingency I gave you guys before, is I'm still willing to play guys in the bad wave as long as they're not chalky. As long as they're going to be a pivot, they're a good course fit, so on and so forth. He's low owned, he's a good course fit, and there are chalky plays around him you can get off of by getting to a Chris Kirk. So yeah, I like him. I don't understand why you bet Tom Kim to win, but you fade him in DFS. If you think he wins, don't you need the winner to take down a GBP? Just trying to pick a brand. You're good. There's a good reasoning for it. So just because I think somebody has more win equity than their implied odds to win, which You know, you've got him early in the week. You got him at close to 16-1, right? That was the odds that I ended up getting on Tom Kim. I think he has like a 12 to 15% chance of winning, right? A little bit higher than what the implied odds would be talking about. I think that there's value there. Now, I have to play him in 65% of my DFS lineups, right? Because he's 30% owned, right? 65% is a lot higher than 12 to 14%. So just because I think somebody has a higher chance at winning than their implied odds doesn't mean that I think they win it more than what I have to play them in DFS. And it's not like every player I'm taking has to have the implied win equity. But when you're talking about a $10,500 golfer, it should be a huge part of the equation, right? Is like, do I think that 2/3 of the time, like what you'd have to invest in Tom Kim to get leverage at, that he's going to be an optimal play, right? And obviously, you could lock him if you want to, and that kind of changes the equation there. But I'm not willing to lock him this week. So to answer your question there, it's the win equity. I see value on it, but I don't see value on DFS because of the opportunity cost. There's guys around him, for example. So I love Tom Kim, but I also love Sungjae, right? So Sungjae's win equity in my model is 1.1% lower than Tom Kim. And the ownership difference between the two is right around 10%, a little bit less than 10%. When you look at it that way, it makes a little bit more sense. I guess you could play Tom Kim and Sungjae, but then my model also really likes the top of the 9K range. Like Russell Henley in my model is just below those two at the top in terms of win equity. So like in terms of outright betting odds, that was the first bet I ended up placing was on Russell Henley this week. That's why, because sure, I think he has a good chance at winning, but it's not 60%, right? Like we know that, right? Obviously the implied odds are like 10-1. But you get the point. Michael says chances of Harris English. I'm lukewarm on him. Let's check his tee time. I think he's an AM guy too. But if he's PM, I'd be a little bit more than lukewarm on him. Yeah, he's AM, 7:50 AM tee time. That's the only issue with him. I like the fact that he's trending in the right direction. He's a better player than his peers, but unfortunately on the wrong tee. Parker says, this is your first time tailing. I can't wait to see all the green. Yeah, hopefully we get green. You don't win every single time, but obviously got to win more than you lose, and that's what we do here. You think Harman gets his first win? He hasn't won before? I think maybe not. I honestly, has he never won before? I know he's come in second like billion times. I know that. It would just surprise me that he's never won before. I know he finished really well at US Open. Let's see. I'm not going to doubt you. Oh, 4 wins, but let's see. It says pro wins. It doesn't have to be on the PGA Tour, right? Let's see. Where are his wins? Oh, no, he's won, boss. He's won 4 times, Doc. He's won 4 times, boss. I'm not going to be his first win. Travis says, whiskey always cures a bug. I asked my doctor today, actually, not my doctor. My aunt's a doctor. And I asked her whether whiskey would be good for me. She said no. Maybe she's just being an aunt in saying that. I'm going to take Travis's advice and have a whiskey afterwards. We'll have to see. He did a parlay $100 into $5,800. What was the parlay on? That's pretty crazy. I love it though. Of course, Tar Heels, always willing to let you pick my brain. It's that's the thing. When it comes to exposure, it changes on sports because like in NBA, I think completely differently than I do for golf. In golf, especially up top, it's all about win equity for me. In NBA, I'll eat all the chalk I need to when it comes to value picks. So it's always willing to hear other people's opinions too, of course. None of us have the Rosetta Stone. Chandler says, last question, sorry for bothering you. You're not bothering me at all, Chandler. Ask away. We still got 25 minutes left here. And he said, thoughts on Webb Simpson? Seems like he's great at this course, but his recent form is complete dog water. Great word for it. I was going to say dog shit. Maybe that's a little bit too harsh for good old Webb Simpson. But yeah, it looks like he's getting past his prime. Hopefully he has a little renaissance in him. I think that very well can happen. I mean, he's not that old. He's like in his mid-30s, something like that. So I don't think he should be completely run down at this point. But yeah, the recent form's dreadful. You hit the nail on the head. If there's going to be a course for a player to resurface at, it's typically going to be at a course where they have good course history. Excuse me. Sorry about that, guys. It's going to be at a course where they do have that course history, though. So if you're going to take a shot on him, Chandler, I think this is a decent week to do so, but it's definitely a shot, right? You know about the recent form. You know what you're getting yourself into. Yeah, let's see. What is it? So it's Tom Kim. Okay. Bills -9, Jags and Bengals. So you're taking the Jags are the only iffy one there. I like the Bengals money line. They're going to cream the Ravens. The Bills are -9. I love that too, honestly. I can't argue against that. 58-1 odds. And I think 2 of those 4 are free squares. It's essentially just Tom Kim to win plus Jags money line. I like it, boss. Lukewarm. I see what you did there. Yeah, Harmon won 2017. I thought so. Anthony says he might not be that old, but 10 kids is going to age you significantly. Yeah, and he had some sort of neck issue last year. It was like towards the beginning of last year. I know he returned. I feel like a lot of us stopped talking about that, but that's still got to be bothering him. I mean, he's an old dude. He doesn't look like he's moving nearly as well as he used to. But yeah, the 10 kids part, I mean, how many freaking practices is he going to at this point? Imagine in a couple of years when they get a little older and they're playing like high school, middle school sports. The guy is going to have to retire. He's just not going to have time. Joshua says, keep up the great work. I enjoy the content. Thoughts on Reavie? It's crazy you shall mention Ches Reavie down there. I actually like him. So I don't have him as a featured play on here. I ended up adding him to the poll last second because he is in the PM wave, which you like. He's accurate off the tee, which I think is going to be a necessity around Waialae Country Club. And he played last week. And the reason why I say he played last week as a huge positive is 8 of the last 9 winners at this event have played at the Sony Open. And wouldn't it just be so troll if the guy who keeps that trend going this week was a Ches Reavie? He makes sense from the course fit perspective, right? He's accurate off the tee. He checks that box. He has pretty good course history around this place. Let's see. How's it look over the last 5 years, though? I don't think it's looked that good of late. It's been okay. 3rd place finish 4 years ago, 18th. He didn't play here last year. I'm playing him this week, right? He's like essentially unowned. You can play him in like 5%, 7% of lineups and get that leverage. I think you're onto something there, bud. It would crack me up if he's the guy to continue that trend. And 10 kids, good Lord, and the better more than the greens. Yeah, he's putting in work out there, and he definitely puts the ball in the hole. It's a good way to put it, boss. All right, let's get back to this player pool. So we talked about Tom Kim. I gave him the time that was deserved there. I do like Sanjay as a slight pivot, but it's really not like you're getting a huge ownership discount, or you're talking like 29% versus 22%. So if you really like Tom Kim this week, then play him. But like I said, I kind of talked myself out of it, which hopefully it's not, paralysis by analysis, as a few of the people, the online clinicians would go out there and say, but we'll have to see. Hideki Matsuyama, he plays in the PM wave. He won here last year, and he's the lowest owned guy up top. By principle, I have to play him because you've seen a few repeat champions, right? Think about Victor Hovland. He was way lower owned than he should have been as a recent champion because, he can't go back to back, right? Sam Burns at the Valspar. He's way lower owned than he probably should have been because he can't go back to back. Well, how many times last year did guys go back to back, right? So I'm tired of hearing that argument. I used to make that fish play back in my early days of DFS, just going, he won last week. He's not going to win again. He won last year. If he's a good play, if he fits the golf course, if he's played well here over the years, then why not play him? It's not like last year was just a blip on the radar for Hideki. Win, 19th, 12th, 51st place finish. He's made his cut all 4 years. The ball striking stats aren't great, right? We know that. We know he's in a little bit of a slump there. But look at the short game. He's gaining across both short game categories. What if he snaps out of it and figures out the ball striking? It's a what if, sure, right? But when you're talking about a pivot play up top, I'm okay doing that. At $10,100, he's certainly in my pool, and he's only 13.6% owned. We'll talk about Jordan Spieth. As you could have guessed, he's in my player pool. He's in the morning wave, so the bad wave. He's still getting ownership. He's like 16, 17% owned. I just don't care. I'm playing Jordan Spieth. I would recommend you probably fade him. But if he goes out there and wins, you're probably going to get mad if I say that. So I'm just going to tell you I'm playing him. But you should probably fade him if you're not trying to light your money on fire. Somebody that's probably a better option in the morning wave would be a Tom Hoge, just based on his playing. But the issue I had with Tom Hoge, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, is that he's streaky, and he's been on that hot streak of late. And I just think the ownership, I have him at 17% right now. I wouldn't be surprised if he's kind of the Victor Hovland from last week, where he gets a little bit more steam than players are expecting. Maybe he's closer to 20, 22% ownership than the 17% I have him projected for. I've seen enough outright bets on Tom Hoge this week. I've seen enough people talk him up across the industry. to just get a little bit of a knack that I think the ownership might be a little bit higher. So I'm going to stay clear of Tom Hoagie, but that's almost entirely because of my love for Jordan Spieth and my unwillingness to fade him, no matter what situation that it is. Russell Henley, still like him. He's playing in the morning too. So he's another player that I don't love the tee time for, but that putting split that we mentioned before, I think is important enough to keep him in the player poll. And he does have a relatively low ball flight. Now, this might be stretching a little bit, but it feels like he plays well in the wind. I don't have any stats to back that up. At least I haven't looked at them for this week. I can bring up win stats if I need to, but I've just played under the assumption that he's good in the wind in the past, and it's paid off. So I'm going to assume I'm right there. I'm not going to bring him up here on stream. But if you go on to Fantasy National and you look up Windy AF, which I do use Fantasy National from time to time, you'll look at Russell Henley. He's pretty good on that. I don't know how good over his last 36 rounds or whatever, but I know if you look at his baseline, he's one of the better players on tour. Let's see. What else we got here? Corey Connors. So I've come along on Corey Connors. He's in the right wave. So he's in the PM wave. And the more and more I think about that long, gnarly rough, the more I want to play an elite driver like Corey Connors that can hit it a long way, hack it out of that rough if he needs to, and then keep it in play more than his peers. He's got right around a 70% fairway percentage, which is going to be extremely useful around this track, particularly on the front nine, where a lot of the difficult holes are that are closer to like 460, 470 yards. That's going to be where you could potentially shoot 2-3 over par, or for Corey Connors, maybe get it to 1-2 under, right? With how solid his ball striking can be. So I see a huge upside for Corey Connors this week, and I'll be there. I don't love the upside. He's the guy I like fading the most. He's the most overrated player on the PGA Tour. I've been on record as saying that, but I do think that this is a good spot for him. So hopefully he doesn't disappoint me once again, but I think from the course fit perspective, he checks a lot of boxes. Keegan Bradley, similar player. Long and accurate off the tee. The approach play is typically a strong suit for him. And the putter has been a lot better over his last 36 rounds than what we're used to seeing. You can see just a slight negative in that category. Look at his Bermuda numbers. For his career, he's a negative 0.3 putter. But if you look at his Bermuda numbers over the last year, he's actually a slight gainer to the field. So it's a little bit disappointing. I shouldn't say that disappointing. It's a little bit, I can't think of the word for it. Misleading. Sorry, I don't know why I couldn't think of that word. That's pretty embarrassing. It's pretty misleading to look at this minus 0.3 there, because over the last year or so, he's been a little bit better on Bermuda than what his baseline would show us. And the putting in general over the last 6 months has been a lot better for Keegan than what we're used to seeing. The body style changes slightly worry me. He did say that he didn't play much golf over December, so he's a little bit rusty. You saw that at the Tournament of Champions. But if you're expecting him to kick off that rust, he's a really good play. He's a much lower owned than he probably should be. So it's a risky proposition. But like I said, if we're overblowing the lifestyle changes, if we're overblowing some of the narrative stuff going around in Keegan Bradley, then on paper, he's one of the best plays on the slate. Let's see what's going on in chat, guys. Sorry, I'm really struggling with the throat now here. Sorry about that. JP says, thoughts on Ben Griffin? Love Ben Griffin. In fact, he's one of the guys I have on here as a highlighted play. So the reason for that is that he's getting some ownership. I wanted to highlight that. I have him at 10.9%. But the thing about Ben Griffin is he's an accurate player. He's kind of reminds me of a young Matt Kuchar, where he's got that iron play. He's going to keep himself in play, and the putter's a huge bright spot. You can see on Bermuda, he's a gainer. On most other surfaces, he's a loser. So that's a positive differential for Ben Griffin. And if you take a look at the approach stats, what's his price tag? He's $7,300. Let's see. He's gaining 0.7 strokes per round on approach. That's outrageous. Slight loser with the putter, but again, we get him on Bermuda, which is his best surface, and right around a neutral off the tee, because he's not the longest player. Again, kind of reminds me of a Matt Kuchar, but he's going to hit a bunch of fairways. So I think there's a lot of upside there. And at 10.9% owned, I'll certainly be over the field. Let's catch up, see what else is going on, chat. Thoughts on Brian Stewart at sub 1%? His recent form isn't terrible. I just hate Brian Stewart. So, I'm not going to play him. But, I understand the course fit. I was actually telling this to Nick March earlier. He asked the same question about Brian Stewart. I think it's It's an okay play. He's number 54 in my recent in my course fit ranking, which for like number 120 in terms of pricing, I guess you're getting a value there. But I have a hard time backing Brian Stewart. Just it's a mental block for me. What are your thoughts on Andrew Putnam? I love his putter at this course. He loves putting here. I believe last year gained over 6 strokes putting or something crazy like that. It might have even been better than that. He loves Bermuda grass. That's historically kind of been his thing. He's accurate off the tee. Yeah, spoiler alert. I like him a lot this week. One of the guys who I first added to my player pool, and definitely there with you, especially early in the week. I was on Andrew Putnam. Let's look at his tee time. I think that's the only concern with him. Might be the fact that he's an early tee time. But yeah, he's a 7:30 a.m. tee time. So that's the one major concern for Putnam. It's why he's not in my personal like top 5. He's not one of my core picks here on the slate. But I understand the play. I understand the course fit, all that sort of fun stuff. Coco for sure. Randy says, and yeah, I think he's overrated, but it's a good course for him. So maybe I'll just get punished once again, or maybe my timing on good old Coco will be perfect. Randy says, who are your favorite afternoon players? Pretty much everyone that I'm mentioning, Randy. So we'll talk, obviously up top, Sanjay Im's one of those players, Hideki Matsuyama. A majority of the players in my player pool are guys going off in the afternoon. Jack says, Keita Nakajima worth an each way bet. So I don't know. It might be a little early for Nakajima. He showed us promise, right? Towards the end of last year. He had that one big pop week. I guess it depends on the number. I'd have to know what you're getting in terms of an each way on him. But at $6,700 in DraftKings, I think he's worth a few shots on. I don't personally have him in my pool. I like David Lingworth just a little bit more. But you're onto something there. I think you're thinking the right way, Jack, because last year he showed us what he's capable of. Nobody's going to play him. His value on Sportsbook is likely there, the value, because he's not this like household name. I like it. Really struggling with the throat now. Michael says, take the players in the PM. How about the Steelers? Yeah, pretty much take the guys in the PM. That sounds like a broken record at this point. And how about the Steelers, huh? I wish we made it to the playoffs. That would have been nice. But perhaps we're just kind of protecting those young players from a disappointment because, I mean, frankly, we would have lost this week like horribly to the Bills if you were the last man in. So I don't feel all that horrible about it, but great way to end the year. Love Kenny Pickett. That kid's the future of the team. That's for damn sure. Andrew says, thoughts on KH Lee? KH Lee's got the good tee time split. He's got himself good stats for the golf course. He's not the most accurate off the tee, but he's also not inaccurate. He's got the good wedge ranges, that 125 to 150. He checks that box. He checks the box from 150 to 175. And he's also a player when it comes to his approach numbers out of rough that he's able to check that. So KH Lee, it was a borderline core pick for me this week as well. The only issue I had with him was his numbers on Bermuda, where he's a loser on Bermuda grass. You can see losing 0.17 strokes per round, whereas he's a gainer on every other surface. So if there's one sort of surface, like grass type, where we don't want to play a KH Lee, it probably would be on Bermuda grass. But if we can throw that aside, if he can just have a spike week on the greens, then yes, he could win this golf tournament. Love him for DFS. And he says, great stuff, Luke. Can't wait until next year's NFL because we have a QB. Yeah, dude. I mean, I went to school at Pitt, guys. You have to realize when he beat Miami, I was at that game. He came in. He was a nobody. No one even knew in the crowd who the hell this kid was. We knew he had a mullet, and then he went out there and beat number 2 Miami at home in his first ever start for us. Ever since that day, and I saw that happened, I knew the kid was an absolute fucking baller, right? So, like, you can say that, like, oh, he doesn't have the best stats, so on and so forth. That kid knows how to win fucking games. He's got more swagger, more moxie than anyone. I don't want to say anyone I've seen, but pretty much. Like, he's just got that effect on people. And, yeah, I've seen this happening for a while. I've known this, Rob, and telling people this for years, that the Steelers were going to pick him as quarterback. He was going to be our guy to lead our team. And I'll just say I'm a very happy guy that it's coming to fruition because I've been asking for it, right? And if I'm asking for it, I better be right about it, right? If he came under the team and sucked, you wouldn't have seen a more unhappy person than me. So yeah, I'm hyped about it. We'll have to see. I put our over under and wins next year at like 10, something like that. I think You could see them win 10, 11 games next year, that sort of thing. They're not going to be a perfect squad, but 10-7 is more than obtainable for them. And that'll be a playoff berth. So hopefully we can see that next year. Let's talk about this 8K range. I'm going way overtime here, so we're going to end up going over an hour. So be it. That'll happen from time to time. But we're going to go a little bit more quickly through this, try and get through this 8 and 7K range. I don't have as many targets in the 6K range, so you really just have to cover this next 7K range pretty much. But still love Adam Scott. Now, Adam Scott, I believe, is teeing off in the morning. Now, I just want to double check on that before I move on. I hope that he's PM wave, but I'm pretty sure he's morning. It's not going to keep me off of him. No, so he is PM wave. Great. So completely ignore what I just said. I'm a jabroni. Apparently, I remembered incorrectly, but I love him at this course. I love him at a positional course where he has to keep himself in play. He can't be aggressive with the driver because his iron play is still top notch even to this day. And the putter has become a real bright spot for Adam Scott. And when you consider the fact that he's pretty damn good on Bermuda grass, over here you can see a slight gainer, which is better than his career baseline of being a slight loser in terms of his putter. I think he's got some upside. And he's only 7.8% owned. I mean, that's just the icing on top. I mean, you play him at 15% of lineups and you're already 2x leverage, let alone if you want to play 25%, get a little bit frisky about it and really try and take home the cake there. So love Adam Scott. Keith Mitchell, we talked about, still love him there. Denny, talked him up on our value picks video today. Love the fact that he's accurate off the tee. One of the best, if not the best, Bermuda putters in the field. And I think just a little bit underrated due to the recent form, but it hasn't been nearly as poor as what people are making it out to be. A few guys to point out. Bazane going off in the morning. I don't love that. I don't love that for Andrew Putnam either. Also, Sibu Kim is a morning tee time. So if you're going to play any of these guys, just make sure to keep that in mind. Full disclosure, I am playing Sibu Kim. Moving into the 7Ks, Kurt Kitayama, absolute stud. I think we've talked about him 3 or 4 times to this point. Just does pretty much everything going for him. JT Poston, I think another great course fit, perhaps worth some attention from your player pool out there, or at least look into it. He's a good course fit. I'll give you that much. I don't want to tell you if I'm playing him. You can probably tell if I'm playing him. Gary Woodland's another PMT time. I like his numbers on Bermuda. He's a much better putter on Bermuda than what you've seen over the last 36 rounds. Mackenzie Hughes, another PMT time. Great Bermuda numbers. And we know, with the win over the last few months, some of the recent form that he has coming in, he's playing much better golf than what you've seen historically from Hughes. He's had top finishes at the RSM Classic in the past, a few other these short Harbor Town kind of courses. So I keep an eye on good old Mackenzie Hughes here. I think he's going well under the radar. And 10%, it's not like he's a single-digit pivot play, but he's not chalk. And I think he could be. In an ideal world, if everyone was looking at stats, he'd probably be 15 to 20% owned. So I do think that you're getting a little bit of value there as well. We talked about Griffin already. We talked about a Kirk, a few other guys in this range. It's worth noting that towards the bottom of the 7K range, I have a lot of guys in my pool. From, let's say, Brendan Todd down to Ryan Palmer here. Let me just count them. I have 11 guys in my pool of the guys that are highlighted over here to the left. So I think it's a little bit of a honey range right here from $7,400 down to $7,100. I mean, a few of them you can see on here, but a Chris Kirk, the course fit makes sense. Brendan Todd's a perfect course fit here. I know somebody talked about or asked about Kazire before. I'll let you guys know how much I like him. A player like a David Lipsky, I have him highlighted on here. I love the course fit for him. The driving accuracy might not be great for Lipsky, but I do think that he's going to be able to lay up off the tee due to his driving distance. So I don't know if I worry about that nearly as much. Just when you start to get into the 6K range, it drops off rather quickly. I guess that's what I'm trying to say here, is that the guys in this bottom of the 7K range, they're pretty decent course fits. They're coming in with pretty decent form too. Now, Pat Kazire, one of the worst players in terms of form here, but I like the course fit. You get into the 6K range. I mean, look at this. Kazuki Higa, who I've seen the international numbers on him. We just know nothing about him. Joseph Bramlett, not really the best course fit. He's actually played pretty decent here over the years, but not the best course fit. And Adam Shank of the world, Carl Wan, who's been absolute utter dog shit for quite some time now on the PGA Tour. Hasn't done anything since joining the tour. Scott Piercy, Kita Nakajima, unknown prospect. Yudo Kasagawa. I'm not even going to try and say the last name. That would be tough even with a good throat going on. Like, it drops off rather quickly. Like Aaron Barnes, you get to the middle of the 6K range. Bottom of the 6K range is pretty much a barren wasteland of value. There's nothing down there. So a lot of my builds are just going to live in the bottom of the 7K range. I'm not going to be jamming in as many players towards the top of the 7K as a result, but I'm okay with it just based on how much I like some of these players. So just to give you an idea from the top level perspective, what we're doing with lineup construction. My throat's killing me, so we're going to go pretty quickly here at the end. I knew as soon as the cough drops ended up wearing off, we were going to be in trouble, and we're at that stage at this point. Tony says, yo, Luke, what's up, bro? You got Tom Kim top 5 at plus 290. Pretty decent. I think he's a great course fit. And you said, you're late to the stream. Did you talk about Hoagie? Yeah, so he's got the traveling going on. I also kind of worry that he's just way too chalky at this point. Like he's a streaky player. Like he's going to look like he's in absolutely stellar form from time to time and then just completely fall off. I'm worried about his volatility. So yeah, I'm kind of with you on that, Antonio. And then he said, are you playing any top 40s? I'm not actually. I usually don't, Antonio. If I'm going to do any outright bets, it'll be outrights and usually like top 5, top 10s. The book that I have offered, because I'm not in a state with a lot of regulated books or anything like that, they don't really offer top 40 bets. So unfortunately, I don't have those at my disposal. If I did, I'd probably play them a little bit more. But if you have any that come to mind, Antonio, feel free to go ahead and toss them down in chat. And I'm willing to take a look at them for you. So let's go into the top of the 7K range. Now I can't speak. Top of the 6K range. Talk about some of these players. So we talked about Jaeger. We talked about Lipsky here. Reeve, interesting little guy to maybe keep an eye on. SH Kim, love the fact that he's going to be accurate off the tee. We've seen that from projections just went off the screen. We know that he's accurate off the tee. We know that he's somebody who's pretty decent with the iron play as well. It's just all about that putter, which can be a little bit inconsistent for an SH Kim, but we've seen the top end upside. Remember early in that fall swing, I mean, he was getting like 18%, 15% ownership pretty much week in and week out. Now what are we looking at? I mean, like 4 or 5% ownership at the very most. That's an intriguing spot to get to. We touched on Ben Taylor. Actually, I don't think we have yet. Ben Taylor, my number 4 model ranking this week, loves Bermuda grass, is accurate off the tee. Oh, and even better, Ben Taylor's been on absolutely scorching form. You take a look at his last 36 rounds. This is probably your biggest misprice of the week. So where's Ben Taylor? There he is. Getting 0.6 strokes per round off the tee, 0.4 strokes per round on approach, and 0.589 per round with the putter. Why is this guy not an 8K golfer? I mean, let's look at the recent form, like his just recent finishes. I mean, they kind of speak for themselves here. 21st, 3rd, couple made cuts, the one missed cut, 39th, 25th, 36th. So he's flashed the upside. We saw the 3rd place finish. He's making a bunch of cuts. He's made 7 of his last 8 cuts. Ball striking numbers are there. The Bermuda numbers are there. What am I missing on Ben Taylor? Why is this guy not 30% owned at $6,800? Why is he not $8,500 this week? Second of all. And third of all, why haven't I heard anybody mention him in any content across the industry? And I think those are all pretty valid questions when it comes to Ben Taylor. And I'll leave you at that. I think you know what to do with him this week. And play him a lot. If you didn't get the message there, play him a shit ton. Going down to the next one, David Lingmerth. We talked about him a little bit earlier too. Just another guy that he's not going as much under the radar. I've actually heard more about David Lingmerth this week than I've heard about Ben Taylor, which I think just kind of adds to the absurdness there, but still like him at 3.3% ownership. And the last play I want to talk about here is Aaron Waialae, who very much surprisingly so has been really good over his last 36 rounds. You take a look at his shots gained metrics, you can see he's gaining a bunch of strokes with the putter, a bunch around the green, and the ball striking stats, they're not going to wow you in one direction or the other, but they've been good enough. He's been making some cuts of late. He's been much better than what his baseline is. I mean, that's for damn sure. And let's look at the event history. Yeah, here. He finished in 41st his last time here. He did miss the cut back there 5 years ago. Before that, a few other made cuts. The recent form, too, just to kind of show you what I was going off of there with an Aaron Waialae. Yeah, buddy, we passed you. Oh, he is 39th, missed cut, 6th, 36th, 46th, 28th, 37th. This is a much better stretch of golf for him than what we've seen for probably a year or two. I mean, last year, there was a stretch where he had missed 7 or 8 straight missed cuts. And now, out of his last 7 events, he's made 6 of 7. So he's definitely trending in the right direction. The putting and around the green numbers have started to come along. He's historically a pretty damn good putter on Bermuda grass. And he's also a relatively accurate driver. So $6,400, that's pretty much as low on the pricing board as I'm willing to go. But an intriguing play, given how many cuts that he's made. He's super cheap, right? You make a cut at $6,400, you're probably going to be pretty happy about it. And he's only 1.2% owned. So all of those things, reasons to play in Aaron Waialae. And yeah, probably somebody you should consider in your lineups too. Let's see what's going on down in chat. We're going to do a real quick look at prize picks. Guys, my throat's killing me. So we're going to do what we can here. Where did I leave off? With Jack. He says, any news on Billy Ho? There were rumors that he could WD. Yeah, so I don't have any information on that. Somebody brought that to my attention like an hour or two ago, and that was the first time I even heard about it. So if that tells you how busy I've been this week with some of like the things outside of golf, I'm usually all over that sort of stuff. But unfortunately, Jack, I don't have much for you. So keep an eye on Twitter. I'm sure there'll be tweets about it, perhaps tomorrow morning. We do have a lock right around noon, so it's not like we have to wake up early for withdrawal news. Just, yeah, I guess keep posted on it. If you're worried about the injury, if it looks like it's legitimate news, then yeah, maybe end up fading him. But I haven't been able to check it myself. So Tarl says, do you say we? Do you have like a team behind you? We just meaning like me and the community, because a lot of people when I pick plays end up tailing me directly. So I'm speaking for them, and that's just something I say in general, man. It's not like I have a team of experts behind me. I'm not Stochastic. I'm not fucking Run Pure Sports that have like a team of like 7, 8 people there working on their projections. It's just me. It's a one-man show here. Antonio says Brandon Matthews is plus 550, Smotherman plus 470. So this is for the top 40s. Yeah, that Ben Taylor plus 190 is the one that I would jump on there. The Smotherman, Brandon Matthews kind of just makes sense. So yeah, that would be the Ben Taylor for me. Can you rank these 3 in order? For single entry, yeah, I'd go Connors, Henley, Harman. Harman B3 for me. And that's a lot of that's considering ownership, right? I'm not just talking about like cash plays. Harman's going to be really chalky in single entries. I do think that Connors will also be chalky. So, if I'm choosing between a chalky Corey Connors and then a chalky Brian Harman, I'm going to side with the ball striking side in a Corey Connors. Antonio says, is it true that the wind will be higher in the morning wave? Absolutely. Thoughts on the build with the afternoon wave? That's essentially what I'm doing, is taking mostly PM golfers. There's 5 or 6 players in my pool in total that I have in the AM wave, but of the 34 players that I'm taking, a majority, 27, 28 of them are going to be in the PM. So there's a heavy emphasis on it, but there's a few really good plays in the AM that are low owned, that are just solid points per dollar plays, severely underpriced players that I'm still willing to get to, but they're few and far in between. I had to vet them thoroughly to make sure that they were going to stay in the pool. And yeah, so it's Connors, Henley, Harman for me on that one, Tar Heels. So let's go over to prize picks. Go over to that side. Now, if you guys have any questions of DFS, still feel free to go ahead and toss them down in chat. On the prize pick side, they moved like everything. So the only 2 props they didn't move that I would still take, these Stewart Sink and this Bazane under, they haven't moved, and I still absolutely love them. Somebody before was mentioning the fact that like they played well here last year, which is true. Look at this. Bazane 5-6, 5-6. Okay. It's the first time playing here. And then over here, Sink, right? 5-6, 8-5. Like it looks like these guys are just absolute killers, right? They have no chance of going under. That's because it was perfect conditions last year. It was super wet. If you remember in Maui for the Century Tournament of Champions, it was a 34 under par winner last year. The reason for that is it was extremely receptive. It was super wet in the area. You hit a ball and it stuck no matter how far from the hole that you were. It's also in Hawaii, right? It's a different island, but if it's extremely wet on Maui, the odds are it's also extremely wet over there near Honolulu in the capital city. So last year, they were a huge benefit because of those receptive greens, also extremely low winds. So considering, actually Anthony just mentioned this a little bit ago, the really high wins that we have tomorrow, yeah, I'm fading these sort of players. So I don't know. Somebody was pushing back on it, I guess, a little bit earlier, but we'll see who's right tomorrow. I feel pretty good about the unders there. I mean, like last year, even with those conditions, the BOB average was 3.6, which is it's way lower, way lower than I think a lot of people are giving it credit for. So that's it for prize picks. Let's see. Did they bump anything back? Did they add anything back to the board? Russell Knox still not up there. Yeah. Let's go to strokes. Yeah, they haven't bumped much. The strokes board's fair. I'll say that. I think this one's priced a little bit more efficiently than the birdie or better board. There's not that many bogeys to be had at this golf course, but there's also not a lot of gimme birdie looks. The birdie or better matchups, I did have Sungjae Im and Corey Connors, but they changed the opponents. So it was Sungjae Im before versus an AM Wave golfer, and then it was Corey Connors versus another AM Wave golfer. I believe it was like Connors versus Henley, and it was Sungjae versus Emiliano Grillo. So what I did is I took the two guys playing in the PM Wave and took their over because they're playing against guys that were playing in the shitty weather, right? So you can't do that anymore. They switched it. Kurt Kitayama's another PM guy playing with Sungjae Im, and Malnati's another PM guy playing with Corey Connors. The one thing I will say, though, is that this Corey Connors over versus Malnati, I would still do, because Peter Malnati is just severely outclassed by anybody to think that, that Corey Connors is just a much better player than Peter Malnati. So I don't hate that one, even after the change. With greens regulation, you could take a bunch of unders here. So this Jordan Spieth under, I love there at the AM Wave. I love Jordan Spieth, right? I'm playing him in DFS this week. But the green regulation average was 12.78 last year. With the windy conditions we're expecting, I think it's going to play closer to like an 11.75 green and regulation average, which, 14 and a half green and regulation is ridiculous if we're going to have a field average like that. So I took the under on him. Billy Horschel, I took the under on. And let's see, who was the other one I took? It was Webb Simpson. Oh, there it is. There you go. All right, so this is a 6-leg parlay you could consider. It looks like they fixed the thing where you could take like 6 props and then put in a little birdie or better mark and make it a full 25x payout. But even as such, like I don't hate this card whatsoever. Let's see. Wow. If you only do a 5-leg card, I mean, look at this. They're only paying you 6x. That's actually quite humorous. But 17.5x for the 6-leg? I don't hate that, honestly. Like, I know that they're trying to screw you with the payouts. No, it's not 25x. But given how correlated this card is, it might honestly be worth it. So, I don't know. These are the 6 props I'd take. The more prudent approach, just to show you guys that, would just be to take any other prop, right? Just go over here, click a random NBA prop that you like. Obviously, do some research. Look at some other cappers from YouTube, Twitter. There's a lot of really good, prize picks people out there. It's not just me, right, doing golf stuff. And then you can get your normal card. Actually, looks like they've adjusted a few things. Typically, or at least earlier today, when you would mix in the one NBA card, it went to 25x. So that's a new development. That's something they must have changed over the last few hours. So disregard that. I guess they changed it for PGA where you have to have overs and unders. So that's unfortunate. I mean, literally about an hour and a half ago, I was able to make those cards with like NBA and NFL stuff. I don't know. I guess they're catching on to us. This is something they did towards the end of last year, is they made things called fade boards, which if this is the case, don't worry, guys. I'm willing to, still play prize picks on a fade board, because what they were doing last year is they were setting up boards with prices way too high. So let's say like the birdie or better average in the field was like 3 birdies. They'd set them at like 5 or 5.5. They're trying to trick people into just supporting players and taking overs. And the issue is if you take all unders, like I just showed you there, right, you get penalized heavily. So people aren't willing to do that. They're not willing to just enter all unders. Well, the thing is, there's a break-even point where the unders are just such good value or have such high hit rates that the lower payouts are worth it, especially if you can mix in like a birdie or better matchup and help alleviate some of that pain or some of the negative multiplier. Those sort of cards are the days where I hit the most on prize picks. So we got them in early. We don't have to quite deal with the fade board, at least if you're on the Patreon. But if they're going to do the same thing from rounds 2 through 4, we're fully equipped to deal with it. So don't worry about it out there, boys. We'll still be able to take that down. Let's see. Are there any questions down there in chat? If not, we're good. Let's see. Oh, there are. We're good. Who do you think is going to be the donkey of the week? It's a good question. I'm going to pick somebody that I'm playing because, you know, they're not a donkey unless you have exposure yourself, right? The donkey of the week. I mean, I guess Corey Connors because he's the most overrated player on the tour. I was on record as saying that just last week, and I'm still playing him this week. So it's probably Corey Connors. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's the 1 week that Corey Connors goes off. Did you talk about Will Gordon? I didn't. You love his talent, but he does the course fit his strengths. Agree with you on the talent level. The course fit is a little bit dicey. He's not the most accurate off the tee. The one thing I will say is that he did end up playing the RSM Classic well. Sea Island is his home course. So if he's playing that course every day, he has a lot of experience. He clearly knows how to play a tight golf course. I mean, you acquire that skill set over the years. Seems like a decent play to me. I'd be there. You know, yeah, of course, man. You said last one, Old Man Cooch. Yeah, I'm in on Old Man Cooch. I didn't want to talk him up because he could also be your donkey. Your question there from a little bit ago wouldn't surprise me. He just absolutely sucked this week. But it's a Matt Kuchar course. Accurate off the tee. Have some of those wedges and mid irons in your bag. That's exactly what Matt Cooch does. So yeah, I'm right there with you, boss. He will certainly be in the player pool. I guess we'll go ahead and actually finish off the stream the right way. Let's go through a few of the DFS builds just super quickly before we get out of here. Take about 2 minutes to do this. So if you're looking to get a cash lineup going, I think you have to play Tom Kim. In this 9K range, you should most likely be playing a Corey Connors as well, just given his floor, his knack for making cuts. In the 8K range, it's a lot more wide open. You could go with a popular option in a Cam Davis, but he's a little bit expensive. So you might want to go a little bit cheaper, go into the 7K range at this point. Take a Matt Kuchar. I think he's a really good cash play. Kurt Kitayama is one of my favorite plays on the slate. I like him at $7,700. We're down to 71.5 remaining for our last 2 spots. And I'll leave you guys there, right? We can't do all 6 spots. The Draftkings PR people or whatever end up getting pissed at you and trying to ban you from DFS if you do that sort of thing. But in terms of like a core 4 for cash, that's probably what I'd be looking at. Now, for large field GPPs, we're going to go through another core 4 here. I'm going to show you one with Tom Kim and then one without. So if I'm playing Tom Kim up top, my second man in is really where you have to start thinking. So instead of perhaps going to a Corey Connors, who's going to be chalky, I know a few people out there like Brian Harmon. I understand it. Good course fit. Just not my personal favorite pick this week. I know Russell Henley is a core pick, right? We talked about plenty of this week. All 3 of those guys are getting significant ownership. If I'm starting with a Tom Kim, we need to pivot as our second man in. And the ideal sort of players for that would be a Keegan Bradley. Maybe take in a Maverick McNeely. Now, I won't be there on McNeely. He's in the AM wave, which is the disadvantageous wave. But I understand if you got to him. So perhaps it's starting with a Tom Kim, then going to a Keegan Bradley. Your third man in, I'm also looking for a pivot because you have 30% of the field playing Tom Kim. A third of whatever, 36,000 entries, right? 12,000 people with the same starting player as you. You want to differentiate yourself as early as often as you can in this lineup. So for our second man in, maybe it's a Siwoo Kim, right? And I know he's playing in the bad wave, so you can't really like that about Siwoo, but he's single digit owned and he loves himself a short positional track. So that's the idea with like a Tom Kim. Now, if I'm starting with a Hideki Matsuyama, I don't care about chalk. Give me all the Corey Connors in the world, right? Go down in this range. Give me Cam Davis if you want to. Now, I don't love Cam Davis here. He's also in the bad wave, but if you loved him, you wanted to take a chalky Cam Davis, do it in a Hideki Matsuyama lineup, right? Don't start with a Tom Kim, Connors, and Cam Davis. This sort of lineup is going to duplicate yourself with like half the field. I mean, not literally, obviously, you know, it's 30% owned Tom Kim, right? So it can't be half the field, but you're going to duplicate yourself in large field GPPs with at least a couple hundred other people on those 3 guys. And then you're dealing with a 3-on-3 versus like 300 people, which just isn't the ideal situation for these large field GPPs, let alone if you end up exactly duplicating another player with the rest of your spots. So that's it when it comes to lineup construction. I know I usually do that earlier in the video, kind of just forgot about it because of the sickness, dealing with the throat there, but wanted to touch on all of that just to be complete there. Let's see if there's any questions. If not, we're going to hop on out of here. Let's see. And did you say your betting card? Is Kim on it? Yes. Tom Kim's on the betting card. We also have Sunjay M on the betting card. So both guys up top. I ended up betting outright. I bet Russell Henley outright. I bet Keith Mitchell outright. And I bet Adam Scott outright. And I bet Kitayama. So these are the 6 guys I bet. It's Kitayama, my 4 core picks, and then Tom Kim. Those 6 players. But yeah, that's all I've got, boys. Voice box is starting to go out. So we did our timing well here in terms of that. Best of luck with all of your lineups, any of your bets that you decide to go with. The community contest link, I completely forgot to plug it, is down in the description of the video. So make sure to join that if you want to have your lineup reviewed on the stream on Monday. We'll be going through anyone's lineup in the community contest, any GPP winning lineups, all that sort of fun stuff. So I always like to plug that right now because I think that's the most important piece of content all week. To go in there, kind of evaluate how we did the week prior, what we can learn from it, use going forward, all that sort of fun stuff. So to make sure to check that out on Monday. Again, join that contest if you want your lineup to be looked at. It's just a lot easier to review a lineup if it's in there as opposed to something where you have to like send me a screenshot or something, which I'm still willing to do, right? If you want to do that, just DM me on Twitter, send me a picture of your lineup and I'll look at it that way. But the better way, the more competitive way, we can have some fun with it, is to join the community contest. So like I said, thank you guys for stopping by. Best of luck. Make sure to hit that like button before you hop on out of here. Also hit that subscribe button if you haven't already so you don't miss any of the content in the future. There are going to be showdown streams, so voice permitting. Hopefully we don't completely lose our voice. I don't imagine that'll happen. So we should be good to go. We'll have rounds 2 through 4 covered for showdown. We'll touch on prize picks there, showdown for all of the single game slates, and all of your questions like we typically do here, hanging out throughout the weekend. So looking forward to it. Our first cut sweat of the entire year. Best of luck, everybody, and I'll catch you guys for next time.